And welcome back to the France 24 debate. I'm Annette Young, filling in for François Picard. And the Republican Party seemingly tumbled towards anarchy over its presidential nominee Donald Trump as House Speaker Paul Ryan cut him loose. This is the fallout from the release of that 11-year-old video which has the presidential candidate describing how he sought to have sex with a married woman and also made obscene comments about women. Ryan's move was seen as an emergency manoeuvre to preserve the party's endangered congressional majorities. It also dashed any semblance of party unity behind a nominee who many Republican senior members are saying that they can no longer support because of his character traits and tawdry campaign tactics. So where to from here for the Republican Party? With me to discuss this is Mark Porter, President of the Republicans Overseas, based here in Paris. From Washington DC, Dana White, a leadership consultant and former foreign policy advisor to Senator John McCain. And also from Washington DC, Josh Krasar, a political editor for National Journal. And from St. Louis in Missouri, Kevin Jackson, a Tea Party activist. Firstly, I want to ask Josh Krasar in Washington, do you really think that Trump can head to the polls without any Republican Party support?
Well, he certainly needs Republican Party support. The question is, can he, the bigger question that Republicans are asking in Washington is, can they salvage their Senate and to a lesser extent their House majorities? It was really fascinating to see the bargain that Republicans had made for most of the months since Trump won the nomination. They basically came up with this formula that they may not like Donald Trump, but they support him for president, and he's better than Hillary Clinton. And almost every Republican Senate candidate in a tough race was basically arguing that line, including John McCain, including Kelly Ayotte of New Hampshire, both of whom defected from the Trump support over the weekend. And it was actually working. Even though Trump wasn't winning in some of their home states, the Republican Senate candidates and House candidates were running as many as 10 to 12 points ahead of the presidential ticket. What happened over the weekend sort of exploded that détente, exploded that agreement that was working to both Trump and to the Republican Senate and House candidates' benefit. So why Republicans are panicking and why you're hearing Paul Ryan and why you're hearing so many Senate candidates starting to distance themselves and trying to figure out how to play this is fascinating to watch. It's almost like game theory in action, where the party's interest was keeping Trump and the party's rank and file members under that same umbrella. Now it's all men for themselves, all women for themselves, trying to figure out the best way to survive the November election.
Now, Mark Porter, you've got a very optimistic take on all of this. You're saying, so what if the party is divided? But as Josh just pointed out there, it does play out in terms of what happens in the Congress and in the Senate. I mean, it does have an impact on the electorate.
Sure. I didn't say that it didn't have an impact. What I meant when I said that if the party shifts and changes, the people probably don't really care. We understand that down ballot Republicans have been doing a very good job for a very long time. Under the Obama administration, we've made more gains than in a long time in history. So this idea that people are going to vote, like Dana said, for their futures. They're going to vote for what they think is the best candidate. This happens in America, and that might be hard for us to see here in Paris. Sometimes it's hard to see in Washington when you think that the party is something that's a structure that's needed. What we have to understand in the polls also is this idea that there are huge amounts of undecided. So Hillary hasn't gotten over 50% in any of the swing states. So if these people break to Donald Trump at the last minute or even before perhaps, then we're going to see Donald Trump winning. What will happen to the party after that? Well, that's going to be quite interesting because Donald's going to be running the party. So at this point, how do we come together? We'll start to see. But people like McCain, for example, have been very talented of sort of swinging one way and then swinging the other, thinking that he knows where the tide is. But I think this time that there's not going to be any more swinging. We need to know where they stand. John McCain's not very loved around the world from Americans abroad, and we represent 9 million voters that we're mobilizing to vote, and many Democrats here are voting for Donald Trump because of McCain. McCain sponsored the FACTA bill and the citizen-based taxation problems. It's causing huge problems here in France. It's taking away sovereignty from the French state and giving it to the IRS, which opened new offices here in the embassy in Paris. This is unacceptable by these elites. And you're right, McCain is starting to act like a Democrat and like Hillary, so this is problematic.
Let me bring in now Dana White, who used to work for John McCain. What do you say to what Mark has just been saying?
Well, I have the greatest respect for Senator McCain, and Senator McCain is always practical and pragmatic. I mean, all of his life, he has served this country, and he's done things that were unpopular, and he's the maverick for a reason, because he doesn't always agree with the Republican Party. He does what's in the best interest of his constituents and the future of America. But what I will also say about the Republicans who are fleeing Donald Trump and taking back their endorsements is, Congress has an abysmal approval rating, has always had an abysmal, for the last 10 years has an abysmal approval rating. It's 5%, it's horrible. However, the American people continue to send back their same congressmen and senators over and over. It's a retention rate of something like 95%. So what that tells me is, as a whole, the Congress is very unpopular, and this one is particularly unpopular. However, they have to make the case to their constituents. They have to talk about their record. They have to talk about what they've brought home. They have to talk about their agenda. That's how they get reelected. I think it's a huge cop-out to say, I'm not going to get reelected because Donald Trump's at the top of his ticket. It's a challenge. It doesn't make it easier. It would certainly be easier with a popular president or a popular nominee. But it's a cop-out to say, I can't get elected. I've worked with these people. I've brought jobs, I've brought opportunities to my constituents, but I can't get elected because Donald Trump was secretly recorded 12 years ago saying something lewd. I mean, that's a lame excuse.
Dana, I interviewed you a few months back for the 51% here on France 24, and you told me at that point how damaging Donald Trump was for the Republican Party. Are you still standing by that, what you said then?
I think he has been damaging for the Republican brand, absolutely. His inability to sort of focus, his personal attacks, the fact that he's a narcissist, an egomaniac, none of that is good for the as the standard bearer for the Republican Party. And I stand by that. However, he has now won the nomination. And now the choice is, you can either vote for him and you can support him and hope to help him, because the other thing about Donald Trump, I don't think he forgives easily. So I'm also very curious, if he wins, who is he going to fill the cabinet with? Because I imagine he doesn't look favorably on people who have not been loyal to him. So as a Republican who wants the Republic to still move forward smoothly, Republicans are going to have to help him, because he is our nominee, and in 1 month, Americans are going to go to the poll and either choose him or choose Hillary Clinton. So that's the choice that we have.
Kevin, Jackson, is there something you want to add to that?
Yeah, I do. So first of all, I apologize to Mark for calling him Richard earlier. Mark, very good insights from everybody. I want to talk about the Republican brand for a second. The Republican brand stinks. And this is a party that has been co-opted by the Democrats in the sense that they can't even sell the concept that they freed black people. The majority of blacks vote for the party that used to lynch our people. And that's because the brand and the people that carry that brand, the standard bearers, are awful. So the Republican brand needed to be upended, and that's exactly what Trump and the grassroots was able to do, was to upend that. Now, that same revolution was occurring on the left, but the problem was the Democrats didn't allow it to happen because they were sneaky, as the DNC WikiLeaks tapes or emails proved. So that's the thing about the brand. The second thing is, Dana's right about the retention rate. The retention rate of Congress is nebulous. It's negligible. It doesn't mean anything in the standard way that elections have been in the past. The problem is the grassroots that turned over Congress in 2010 and did it twice, actually, are the people who are really important. It's not the Republican Party who are important. Trump got more people to vote for him than any other candidate in history in the primaries, and we had double the number of people who voted. So by himself, he was able to beat any other candidate in history. That should tell you all you need to know. So you look at the number of
Josh, let me just,
and then the
sorry, finish, Kevin.
Well, I was just going to say, look at the number of people that didn't vote for Trump in the primaries, but he had enough to win. And now those that voted for all the other 16 candidates, a good percentage of them now support Trump. There's a good percentage of Democrats that support Trump. Trump is not going to have any problem bringing people to the polls. And the people who are going to pay for this are the congressmen who don't support Donald Trump.
Josh, would you agree with what Kevin just said?
No, I mean, I have a hard time understanding how Trump supposedly improved the Republican brand when his favorability ratings are at historic lows. Hillary Clinton has the second lowest favorability rating of any candidate in the post-World War II era. Donald Trump's are about 10 points worse in the net favorability category. So Republicans would probably be defeating Hillary Clinton with almost any of their other 16 candidates, but they chose to nominate the one candidate that could actually lose this election and this is an election where the fundamentals actually favored the Republican Party. It's a lot of voters want change. They certainly want a fresh face, and they're dissatisfied with a lot of the policies of the current administration. They certainly view Hillary Clinton in a very unfavorable light. So actually one of the interesting notes from all these WikiLeaks notes that have been coming out there is that even the Clinton campaign was discussing that they could actually lose the election to Ted Cruz and all the other Republican candidates, and the only way that they could actually win it, according to one staffer that was identified in these emails, was if the Republicans actually had the gall to nominate Donald Trump. So the notion that the Republican brand the reason the Republican Party's image is so negatively viewed both now and before is that Republicans don't like their own. I mean, you basically have a wing of the Republican Party that views its own voters and its own leaders in a negative light. So while the Democratic brand isn't doing too well either, it's usually negative when you look at
Josh,
the
what you're missing here, is what Kevin had pointed out earlier.
Let Josh finish.
The Republican Party is suffering such negative ratings, and Trump has actually accentuated the problems because you have both factions at odds with each other, at war with each other. They don't even like their own party.
Well, okay. Anyway, I think that Kevin's more right on this point because, in fact, when he pointed out that there's more people that voted for Trump in the primaries, then the fundamentals have changed. So all these people sitting in Washington are coming up with all these calculations based on old fundamentals. The world's changed, and they're still calculating the old way. I think we have to move on from there. And I think at this point, we look at the people that go to Trump rallies, and you see tens and thousands of people showing at Trump rallies. Who shows up at a Hillary rally? Nobody.
A lot of people.
Not a lot.
A lot of
you
people
go to Bernie Sanders
backgrounds,
rallies, and 150 people show up for these rallies.
Josh, I just want to talk to you about something. Politico website has been reporting that as Trump's campaign continues to sort of unravel in terms of the support, the Republican National Committee has gone dark in that it's been failing to give GOP vendors guidance on whether to keep working for the nominee or to remove resources into down ballot races. What are you hearing from where you are?
Right, so that was the story that was reported in the midst of the crisis over the weekend when the video came out. Republicans were back in their home states and districts wondering what to do, and there was literally radio silence from the party because they didn't know a good answer. They couldn't really come up with a credible response, so they basically put a halt temporarily to those mailings. Now, what I've heard from my Republican sources is that they're back on track. The Republican messaging is back to where it was previously. Mike Pence, if you remember, there was a lot of questions on whether he would actually stay on the ticket. He put out a statement condemning Trump, criticizing Trump in the wake of the video coming out. Now he's been defending him and actually praising him and saying he sinned, but everyone sins and has a chance to redeem themselves. But the party was really in crisis mode. They were looking at numbers showing that
those are the rumors around Washington
nationwide.
Exactly.
No, it's data. It's data. If you believe in data, if you believe in actual empirical data, that's what they were looking at. And this is not just the establishment.
I was on the conference call, so I was in the loop with this, and you got your data from I don't know where. But actually, what was happening is we were putting together, and we were trying to understand what was happening. This is normal. It's not the first thing that happens. So in crisis mode, this is a bit ridiculous because we already had a plan in place. Rents never said he was going to cut any funding. Whoever put that out and put it on CNN and out there so all journalists in Washington are eating this stuff up, this is completely false. This is just rumors that DNC's put out.
It's an actual planned misinformation campaign.
Exactly.
The same way that they told us Clarence Thomas was retiring. I was in Justice Thomas's office about a week after that, and he says, Kevin, I never said that. look, this has been a media onslaught against Trump. And again, and all the things that Josh is talking about is nothing more than just, I don't, data, call it whatever you want. Look, I'm on the ground with lots of people, millions of followers, speaking to people all the time, very close to the Trump campaign, fairly close to the Republicans. And what I'm telling you is if it weren't for a complicit media, Donald Trump would be 20 points solidly ahead of Hillary Clinton, because the groundswell of people, and Mark alluded to it, attending rallies versus Hillary Clinton is exponentially different. And that is the same type of enthusiasm that's going to send more people to the polls voting for Trump and less for Hillary.
Okay.
That's the end of it.
Kevin, at this point, I want to ask all of you the question, because you seem to all agree that the party is divided, but the fact is you have an election. How do you put the party back together again after all of this? Starting with you, Dana White.
I think what we have to do is we need to take the lessons from Trump. I mean, he's probably most Republicans, establishment Republicans, not our first choice, but he really found something. He exploited something. He discovered something among the populace that, frankly, we could have tapped into. Republicans have great ideas. We just don't present them particularly well. And Donald Trump really tapped into something, and we need to understand the frustration that he's tapped into. He's doing much better with Black voters than anyone thought he might. He's doing better with Latino voters than anyone thought he might, because he's tapped into a frustration. And so I think the best thing for the Republican Party, the establishment, to do is to take a deep breath and really analyze, how did we miss this populist uprising?
Josh, can I ask you, is it possible to rebuild after all of this?
Yeah, it is. I mean, and the key is that you need to find areas that the Trump campaign and the populist wing of the party have effectively exploited, and to find a way to kind of have a third way by realizing that the tax cutting policies, the deference to Ronald Reagan that traditional Republican candidates have done for so long is an outdated mantra, and you need to look at where Trump really tapped into the Republican base and really tapped into this populist base on issues like trade and immigration. I mean, the fact that Republicans thought immigration reform was the #1 issue instead of jobs or instead of the economy in the wake of the 2012 presidential election was a major miscalculation, and they tried to pass a comprehensive immigration reform bill that only alienated their base and really hurt a lot of their leading prospects for the Republican nomination. It hurt Marco Rubio very much, and it was, if you actually look at polling among Hispanic voters, immigration is a very important issue, but they could also reach out in other ways, like trying to come up with ways to increase economic mobility and help create jobs in the country. And they were so focused on certain issues that appeal to the Chamber of Commerce wing of the party, they didn't really realize that a sizable share of their own base had a lot of other issues and concerns that the party was not addressing. So the big wild card, though, is what Donald Trump does after the election. If he doesn't win the election, does he maintain himself as a major force in the party? Does he start a TV network? Does he stay in politics? Or does the party have a chance to rebuild without him?
What would happen to all those Trump supporters within the party?
Well, I'll tell you what will happen. They'll go vote again, and we'll find somebody else. It's not about Trump. It's about getting rid of the corruption in the establishment in Washington. These people, when we say who will fill the cabinet post, there are plenty of competent people out there ready to stand up and to serve their country. I was at the convention in Cleveland. You should have heard. Everybody was so excited. We have a lot of qualified people in all the delegations from all the states. It was extremely exciting, regardless of your introduction when you said it was chaos. That was ridiculous. Right. We had some debates, as always. What really happened was nobody talked about McCain. Nobody talked about the Bushes. Nobody talked about Romney. They're gone. And I didn't even realize we didn't talk to them until I got back to Paris and people were asking about
So
this.
Are we looking at a split in the Republican Party?
A split? We're talking about a revolution here. What do you mean a split? We're talking about let's stand up for our country because things have gone wrong for so long. Somebody's got to do something, and we can't trust the people in Washington.
But at the end of the day, can the Republican Party survive?
Of course it will. It'll be another form. It'll be the people. The people aren't going to disappear. They're here.
Josh, can I ask you, will the Republican Party survive?
Yeah, I mean, it is a revolution. It's like the French Revolution, where the party's eating its own, and it's creating chaos. I mean, you can't have your own pure views when you don't have a majority of the country behind you. You can look at the data, you can ignore the data, but it's clear that you do have a sizable faction in the party that is pro-business, that doesn't agree with Trump and the populist wing on immigration, on trade. They have a very different worldview on these issues. So you need to find a middle ground so you have both sides working together so they can build a majority against the Democratic Party.
Josh, you're really from Washington. That's great.
I'm afraid at this point...
It's knowing math.
Math. Statistics is not math, Josh.
At this point, guys, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there because it's time now for Media Watch, and I'm going to be joined in the studio by James Creedon. And I'm joined here in the studio by James Creedon, and not surprisingly, a lot of buzz about Donald Trump on social media, not at least all from his own Twitter account.
A lot of it being driven by his very much followed Twitter account. In any case, people are talking about it. You're going to see a lot of people also saying he's not in trouble at all. You know, the Trump supporters seeming to believe that he will defy expectations and still win this election. You're going to see a large silent majority come out for this election, says one Trump supporter, and you're going to see a Trump victory. A lot of people in the Trump camp as well sharing images such as this one. This is, I suppose, a satirical news report. This just in: Donald Trump rented a videocassette tape back in 1993 from Blockbuster and failed to rewind it. So obviously that's indicating that a lot of the charges against Donald Trump are exaggerated or trumped up or whatever. In any case, Donald Trump's own account is continuing to refer to Hillary Clinton as crooked Hillary, and essentially he's saying now that disloyal Republicans are even more difficult than his opponent. They don't know how to win, and I will teach them, he said in one tweet. Now, Philip Gorovich responded to that, Philip Gorovich of the New Yorker magazine. Shouldn't be long now till we hear the new chant, lock them up, okay, instead of lock her up, in reference to Hillary Clinton. It is so nice that the shackles have been taken off me and I can now fight for America the way I want to. So Donald Trump is presenting this as, again, I suppose, another anti-establishment attempt to spin what's going on, whether it be from the Republican Party or from the opposition.
Now, meanwhile, on a Conservative website, the focus, not surprisingly, is more on Hillary Clinton's woes.
That's right, indeed. Another WikiLeaks data dump, and a lot of media have been going through that, more conservative media, and looking for anything possible with which to criticise Hillary Clinton. The Drudge Report and others picking up on the fact that apparently she included cues in some of her speeches on when to smile, and also claims in some of that coverage as well that she doesn't like everyday Americans. Now, that's a completely distorted reading of what was in an email between John Podesta and another correspondent, because in fact everyday Americans was an expression that Hillary Clinton sometimes used in speeches, and she was tired of using it. She was against the use of this expression. So that'll show you the way in which it's being distorted in tweets. Good to see the media and both parties support a candidate who hates everyday Americans. So there's a lot of spin and a lot of dishonesty in the way in which some of the WikiLeaks data is being covered.
Well, we are in the middle of a presidential campaign, so there's always got to be a lot of spin, isn't there?
That's right. And just to finish with the WikiLeaks, how Julian Assange turned WikiLeaks into Trump's best friend. That's one perspective from Bloomberg. Can a lonely man in a tiny bedroom, that's Julian Assange in his embassy bedroom, deliver a real October surprise?
And finally, something to make us smile in the midst of all this: Bill Medley and Jennifer Warnes.
That's right. Really strange. Some people did point out that if you were to take a look at the way the candidates were on stage at the debate on Sunday night, it looked almost like they were singing a duet. And in fact, some geniuses, I believe, in the Netherlands edited together just that. Let's take a listen to that.
I've been waiting for so long now. I finally found someone to stand by me.
We saw the writing on the wall as we felt this magical fantasy. Now we're
each other's hand, but we seem to understand the urgency.
That's extraordinary, I have to say.
Their best talking points in the whole evening, we have to admit. They should just sing constantly. Enough of the politics.
That's right. Thanks for that. That's James
Thanks for
Creedon
that.
with Media Watch, and that's it for the France 24 debate.